and then I would like to summarize the debate for you and show you why we, as the opposition, have actually won this debate. So first, ladies and gentlemen, let us look at what has just been said, or rather, matter that has just been presented by side government. Ladies and gentlemen, what has been going through this debate is this idea that by virtue of breaking down national boundaries, we solve a lot of problems as Africa. And we think this is not the case. Let us look at their first point that they raised with regards to culture. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about this throughout the whole debate, and I think all they need is just new analysis. I'll give it to you. So they said Muslims and Christians live well together, they love each other, everything is great. Ladies and gentlemen, what we see and the reality of the situation is that even within countries themselves, there exists conflicts. I take you to the example of Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, just last year, when the Christians were being persecuted by Goodluck Jonathan. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that problems that exist within a country do not necessarily get solved quickly, just because right now the person who's running the country is one man that every African has been voted for. Secondly, what they talked about, ladies and gentlemen, was a sort of clarification between the AU and the United States of Africa, which I've been waiting for throughout this whole debate. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, what they said was that matches will be attended much faster than the AU, and then we're just one state. We're still only breaking down national boundaries. What we see, ladies and gentlemen, to take you through this, is that when we make a body bigger than it is, when a company gets bigger, so because this is what we're doing, we're making government a bit bigger, is that bureaucracy then exists. What we see, ladies and gentlemen, is that this idea that problems will sort out quicker is actually enough. Because it means, ladies and gentlemen, if our headquarters are in Egypt, and we as Swaziland are having a problem right now, it means we need to wait until we can get audience with Egypt until that problem is actually solved, instead of solving it ourselves as a country, Swaziland, that we are now. Secondly, what do we see with this, ladies and gentlemen? We see that it actually spreads corruption. It's bad enough Nigeria is the most corrupt country in Africa. It's bad enough Swaziland wastes 80 million on corruption every year. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that this model that you are creating, just a second, sir, we think that this model that you're creating, ladies and gentlemen, actually perpetuates corruption because it puts all the money in one place, and this makes people have access to
Swaziland spend 80 million for nothing.
Well, I'm sorry.
You say Swaziland spent 80 million for nothing. So would you substantiate that?
Oh yes, I can tell you, I know. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I said Swaziland has spent 80 million on corruption. What the government gladly did for us was to release a statistic last year in telling us that they cannot run the University of Swaziland. It needs 80 million to run. They can't run it. Why? Because 80 million is accounted for corruption each and every year. Clearly, the Corruption Commission is not working. I think that was actually relevant to this debate, but that's fine. Right, if we look at this idea, ladies and gentlemen, what they also said, I have 2 more points on this. So, they said they had this wonderful idea about economics. So, in economic terms, we're going to have more exports in Africa, it's going to be more investment, you know, things are going to be amazing. First, let's look at what Africa actually exports. Africa exports primary produce. What does basic economics tell you? When I increase supply of maize in the market, I actually drive down my prices. So we think, ladies and gentlemen, that this doesn't help Africa in any way. Selling corn for 5 rand instead of 25 rand, we don't think, ladies and gentlemen, that Africa benefits in any way through this, through your increasing supply of our primary produce, which you will still be exporting as Africa. And secondly, what will we see by doing this? We will see protectionism implemented by other states, such as the United States of Africa, such as the USA, if our product is actually cheaper. Therefore, they will try to absorb these shocks of their own markets, ladies and gentlemen, by not buying from Africa. So essentially, we're creating more and more problems for ourselves. This idea of investments, ladies and gentlemen, we think we point to the idea of bureaucracy. Who exactly do I talk to if I want to invest in this huge nation with 44 little states and 1 billion people? Ladies and gentlemen, it is impractical. Now let's look at the summary of actually where this whole debate went in terms of the issues that were raised, some of them we dealt with. So, government side, ladies and gentlemen, we heard about this idea of Africa being a superpower. A superpower that is able to solve its political issues, ladies and gentlemen, that has this amazing bargaining power in the market, that has cultures that are homogenous to each other, and that is able to solve its own societal ills. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, they said we should make this United States of Africa. What we think, ladies and gentlemen, aside our position, we have responded to these matters, ladies and gentlemen. We think that by virtue of the fact that we cannot run our own countries, ladies and gentlemen, it clearly shows that Africa has has a problem with just leadership in general, where we have representative governments ourselves. We cannot actually run our own little states. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we think that making this problem bigger by essentially giving government to more people, we think it doesn't necessarily help in any way, ladies and gentlemen. And we see that in most instances, these conflicts are actually embedded in resources. South Sudan and North Sudan. The main conflict, ladies and gentlemen, is because of oil. Where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line? And where does this oil actually belong to? We think that under this model that they're advocating for, ladies and gentlemen, the problem is not solved. Instead, it is exacerbated. Number one, North and South Sudan would still be fighting, if they are still fighting. Number two, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at the bargaining power, ladies and gentlemen, we think Libya is still going to want to have more of a say because oil demands more revenue as compared to Swaziland's sugar, ladies and gentlemen. So what we as opposition, ladies and gentlemen, came up here to say was that, ladies and gentlemen, by virtue of the fact that they're not distinguishing what the difference is between what they're advocating for and the AU, we don't think this is the way we want to go about it. By virtue of the fact that countries and their different economic policies, ladies and gentlemen, since their different economic policies do not marry each other, ladies and gentlemen, we do not think that individual states would want to go about this policy, ladies and gentlemen, because we still believe that these problems need to be solved at individual, social, or other country level. If we look at this idea of diversity, ladies and gentlemen, we see that by virtue of difference in beliefs, by virtue of difference in governance and leadership, we do not think that this would be a peaceful way in which to go about forming the United States of Africa. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, by virtue of impracticality, failing to get a buy-in from different countries because someone wants to have more of a say than another, failure, ladies and gentlemen, to want to let go of national sovereignty and the spill-on effect on this, ladies and gentlemen, and the failure of the EU, we think, ladies and gentlemen, we do not want a United States of Africa.